Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Before I begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to welcome everyone to our virtual meeting, and I'd like to explain this meeting format. Tonight we have our commissioners and staff visible on a video feed. Members of the public have been invited to comment on Weaver Speaks in advance of tonight's meeting and are also able to participate live through a web link or by calling in on the phone. You can find that information on our meeting agenda at weaverspeaks.org. All members of the public who are participating live have been muted. When it is time for public comment at the start of our meeting or as part of the public learning, we will unmute all members of the public and I will ask you to speak in order based on the first letter of your last name. When we unmute the public, please keep background noise to a minimum. You may choose to mute yourself through your own device. If you do not plan to participate at all this evening, we recommend you simply view the meeting live by watching on channel 8 or on weaverspeaks.org. If you do plan to participate this evening, when you speak, please state your first name clearly, spell your last name, and give your street address for the record. The time limit for public comment is 3 minutes per person. Speakers may not donate their time. When there are no more speakers, I will close the time for public comment and public participants will be muted again. We appreciate your patience with this virtual format. As with our in-person meetings, our hope is that we create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue. We appreciate your help in this process. Thank you. I would now like to call the City of Weaver's Planning Commission for January 21st, 2021 to order. May I get roll call members, please?
Ari Krichover, Jahi Simbai,
Here.
Scott Ohm,
Here.
Christine Disney,
Here.
Melissa Antle,
Here.
Will Kearns,
Here.
Janet Leo, and Daniel Larson.
Here.
That is everybody.
Thank you. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with
liberty
and
justice
for all. The next item will be to approve the order of the agenda. Before we continue with our agenda, I'd like to explain how we'll be voting on items tonight. Once we have a motion and a second, all commissioners in support of the motion will be asked to raise their hands and to keep them raised and visible until the recording secretary acknowledges that they have recorded those votes. After voting, the recording secretary will read the result of the vote to confirm it is recorded correctly. We use this protocol for any voting scenario tonight. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We will now call for a vote. Please raise your hand.
Motion passed 8-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from December 17th, 2020?
I move to approve the minutes from the December 2020 meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote. Please raise your hands.
Motion approved 8-0.
We are now at the public forum. This is a time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on tonight's agenda. There are 2 items on tonight's agenda, 2 cases. You have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may not donate their time. Please give us your name, spell your last name, and share your address. We will now unmute all participants. Please keep background noise to a minimum. If you do not plan to speak at this time, you may mute yourself through your own device. Is there anyone wishing to speak whose last name begins through A through E? Are there any Is there anyone else that wishes to speak tonight?
We only have 3 folks joining us.
Okay, I will close the public forum. We have I'll move on to the public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. For the public hearing, we'll be adding the appropriate staff and when applicable, the applicants to our video feed. Their screens will be shared or presentations are being made. They will remain a part of the video feed until conclusion of the respective agenda items. After the presentations, the commission will ask and questions of the staff and applicant, and then we will conduct the public comment portion of the hearing. This will be conducted in the same manner as earlier by unmuting all public participants. We typically administer an oath for any participant, any public hearing, staff, applicants, and the public. In this virtual meeting format, we are administering that oath in a different way. If you comment during a public hearing tonight by choosing to testify, you're agreeing that the testimony you give will be the truth as you know it. I now open up case number MS-20-06, an application filed by Corey Whitaker with Habitat for Humanity for approval of a minor subdivision to replat 3 lots into 4 lots on property zone residential 2A and located south of 4550 Miller Street, and ask for the staff report.
Hi everyone, I'm going to play the staff presentation first and then the applicant presentation. Hello, my name is Zareen Tasneem and I am a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge's Community Development Department. I am presenting case number MS-2006, which is a request for approval of a 4-lot minor subdivision on property zone residential 2A and located south of 4550 Miller Street. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision regulations, and the digital presentations. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case.
So noted.
The property is located on the east side of Miller Street between West 44th Place and West 45th Avenue, just a block north of West 44th Avenue. Miller Street functions as a collector street as it provides a direct connection between West 44th Avenue and the I-70 frontage road to the north. The subject property was historically under the same ownership as a single-family home immediately to the north and has never been developed. Fruitdale Park is located to the northeast, and Compass Montessori School is immediately to the south. On the west side of Miller Street is a residential neighborhood with a mix of single-family homes and duplexes. The 3 lots directly across the street from the property currently contain duplexes. As seen on the zoning map, the site is zoned R2A. Depending on the lot width and overall size, the R2A zone district allows for single-family homes, duplexes, and multifamily structures. The neighborhood to the east is almost exclusively zoned residential 2, R2, while the zoning along Miller Street is mixed with a variety of agricultural, residential, and commercial zone districts. A subdivision plat is a technical document that removes, creates, or defines property lines. It allows the city to evaluate right-of-way and allows the city to evaluate civil documents such as traffic or drainage. As a reminder, a subdivision plat does not affect the zoning or permitted uses on the property. It enables development already permitted by the zoning. Because the plat creates 4 lots, it is classified as a minor subdivision, and Planning Commission will be the approving body. There will not be a public hearing at City Council. With that, we'll look at the plat, in this case, 2 pages. This is the first sheet of the plat, which includes standard notes and declarations. It also includes the signature blocks for owners, the city, and the surveyor. On the second sheet of the plat is the graphic portion, which establishes new lot lines and easements. Let's zoom in and walk through that. This is the same image zoomed in. North is to the right. Highlighted here in orange are the existing conditions of the existing 3 lots. The total size of the subject property is just under 1 acre. Highlighted in blue are the 4 proposed lots. With any subdivision, the city will evaluate the adjacent right-of-way. In this case, it was determined that the current width of Miller Street is currently wide enough to construct the frontage improvement. Therefore, no right-of-way dedication is required. However, the developer will be responsible for constructing curb gutter, a 6-foot amenity zone, and a 6-foot detached sidewalk along Miller Street. This image highlights the new easements being established. The yellow represents easement areas for utilities. Typically, we see perimeter easements on new residential lots. The red represents a 26-foot wide drainage easement proposed along the western front property line that will encompass water quality provided through pervious paver parking pads in the front yards of each lot. With the increase in impervious area, the initial drainage plan proposes the eastern half of the site follow historical drainage patterns and drain to the eastern rear property lines, while the western half of the site is proposed to drain towards and discharge via infiltration through the proposed pervious paver pads. As part of the review process, the application was sent on referral to outside agencies and other city departments. The engineering division has approved the plat. All utility agencies can serve the property, and the developer will need to work with those entities to install necessary infrastructure and taps. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. Comments collected on Wheat Ridge Speaks will be reviewed by the planning commissioners and entered into the public record. Staff has concluded that all agencies can serve the property and all requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. Therefore, we are recommending approval with 2 conditions. The requirement for a subdivision improvement agreement, where the obligations for building public improvements along the Miller Street frontage are memorialized, and the requirement for fees in lieu of parkland dedication be paid at time of building permit. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that we did not receive any formal comments on Wheat Ridge Speaks. However, staff did receive a question from the public related to if Habitat currently owns the property and timing of construction of the structures. While staff did let the inquirer know that Habitat does currently own the property, staff is not able to comment on timing of construction and was informed that's more a question for the applicant if the inquirer chooses to attend the public hearing tonight to ask them directly themselves.
Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes, and I'm going to play that next.
Hello, my name is Corey Whitaker, and I'm part of the real estate team with Habitat for Humanity of Metro Denver. Today, I would like to share with you Habitat's Miller Gardens subdivision. The subdivision is located west of Kipling Street and north of 44th Ave on Miller Street. The subject property is slightly under 1 acre in size. It is currently vacant. The existing zoning for the property is R2A. This zoning allows residential uses such as one-family dwellings, two-family dwellings or duplexes, and multifamily or buildings of 3 or more dwelling units. Habitat is not proposing to change the existing zoning of the property. The property is adjacent to Compass Montessori School to the south, Ptarmigan Condominium Complex to the east, a single-family home to the north, and a couple duplexes across Miller Street to the west. Habitat for Humanity of Metro Denver is proposing to subdivide the property into 4 individual lots. Each of the 4 lots will have a 75-foot frontage and are 135 feet deep, making them just over 10,000 square feet in size, or just under 1/4 of an acre each. Habitat is planning to construct 1 duplex per lot as allowed under the current zoning for the property. As part of developing the property, Habitat will be making public improvements along the Miller Street frontage. Currently, no curb, gutter, or sidewalk exist along Miller Street at this location. The frontage will be improved with a vertical curb and gutter, a 6-foot tree lawn area, and a 5-foot detached sidewalk. I would also like to take a little time to tell you about Habitat for Humanity of Metro Denver. Habitat has been building and selling homes in Metro Denver for over 40 years. We sell our homes to buyers making at or below 80% of the area median income. This equates to a family of 4 making at or below an annual salary of roughly $72,000. Our buyers are hardworking, essential members of our communities. In our over 40 years of building, Habitat has constructed over 750 homes in Metro Denver. Habitat prioritizes quality construction, energy efficiency, and community-focused design. Please feel free to reach out to me at the email below if you have any questions about this subdivision or Habitat for Humanity. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for that presentation.
And the applicant is here tonight if they would like to say any other comments in addition to the presentation.
Okay, let's hear from the commissioners. If there's any questions, Commissioner Kearns.
Well, I think there's a single family home to the north, and you're not affecting the property line of that single family home, correct? Because it looks like there's a vacant lot as part of that, or could we take a look at the map?
Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Whitaker with Habitat for Humanity.
Hey, Corey, thanks.
Serena, are you able to share the aerial?
Yeah, so the single family to the north has some space next to it, so we're a little. There's kind of a buffer between us and that house.
Yep, it's like they've got a loop driveway. Okay, but you're not. They're basically on 2 lots, so you're not taking any part of their lots.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so we actually purchased the property from them back in 2016, 2017.
Okay. And then could you explain a little bit more about the improvements you're going to be making to the Miller Street frontage? Is there going to be a sidewalk or is it just a parking pad?
There will be a and I think I misspoke. It's actually a 6-foot detached sidewalk in my presentation.
Okay.
So it's a vertical curb and gutter, so it'll connect to the Montessori side curb and gutter and sidewalk. That's attached right now, so we'll connect to that, and then we will detach from that, and we'll have a vertical curb and gutter, and then a 6-foot tree lawn, and then a 6-foot detached sidewalk.
Great. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Okay. Commissioner Disney?
Thank you, Commissioner. I am wondering where people are going to park.
Good question. I could.
We can talk maybe from a zoning standpoint. They'll have to comply with the zoning code in providing the number of parking spaces per dwelling unit, which is 4, and can be counted as on-street parking immediately adjacent to the lot, driveway parking, and garage parking. So they will be meeting that, and we'll review that as part of the building permit process. We've seen conceptual plans just to demonstrate what their impervious area is, and in as much as it affected drainage, but it's just not shown as a part of the subdivision plat.
And I can comment that from Wheat Ridge, we consolidated driveways. So there's a single driveway per lot, or a single curb cut per lot, so that there's not 8 different driveways coming across the sidewalk.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Sambai?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, 2 questions for you, Ms. Tasneem. One, under the parkland dedication, there's the statement, if 4 duplexes are built, then the applicant will need to pay for 8. Is that in question that it possibly could be something different than 4 duplexes?
Sure. So based on the current zoning regulations for this zone district, they can either build a single family home or a duplex on the lots. So that's just kind of left in general, because both of those are permitted under the zoning regulations and the lot size requirements.
Got it. So we are reviewing just the lot sizes, and something could be different in terms of duplexes or a single.
Correct.
Before, and sometimes economic conditions change and people walk away. So we don't assess the fee until somebody comes to actually build a unit and we know if it's 1 or 2. It seems very likely here they've already closed, but we always caution that we don't know what could happen between now and permit.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question was under the agency referrals and the Wheat Ridge Engineering Division, there's a statement and approval of the drainage report and civil construction plans are pending. So is there any update on that as of tonight, or are we able to move forward when there's something pending like this?
The drainage report is currently under review, but they're very, very close to having all of their civil plans completed. So, I mean, they've addressed the water quality that they need to adhere to, and they'll be fine under their current platting proposal. Essentially, at this point, what we look at is to make sure that they have the proper easements in place to accommodate what their engineering design is going to be, and they have that shown.
And to answer the other half of your question, you are the plat is far enough and the civils are far enough along for you to make a decision tonight. Depending on the size and scale of the project, sometimes those cities are approved by the time we get to you, and sometimes they're not quite there. But in this case, we felt they were comfortably far enough along on their way towards approval to be able to schedule tonight's hearing.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. Yeah, they've done enough calculations to know what the volume is going to be, so that we know what the easement size is going to be on the plat.
Okay, thank you very much. And no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can somebody, the staff or the applicant, confirm for me that the way the lots are oriented, and we're talking about a duplex on each one of the lots, so there'd be 2 residences per lot, that the front door, front facing, it faces Miller, and there's not going to be a side entrance, because we're talking about splitting 75 linear feet in half for each one, give or take.
I can confirm that the front doors will be facing Miller Street. Yeah.
Okay. And can you describe for me what a pervious parking pad drainage looks like? Is that going to be allowed, or will automobiles be allowed to park on that drainage area? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, so I guess if you can envision kind of a driveway off of Miller, and then 2 parking pads off of that driveway. So you come in on a driveway and you take a 90-degree turn and you park on a parking pad, and that's going to be like a kind of a brick parking pad over some sand. And so we just did tests to make sure that the soils percolate enough for it to work. And we've been working with Dave on all that. And so all the water will be directed in that area. It'll hit those pervious parking pads, and then it'll drain into those and kind of do what water quality needs to do.
And do you anticipate having an interior garage, an entrance through that pad into the building itself?
We do not. So we just anticipate 2 surface parking spaces.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All the questions I have for now.
Thanks. Thanks, Serene, for pulling that up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment, this is very conceptual in nature and not guaranteed to actually build out this way, but this is what they're envisioning as a conceptual plan, just so you guys have an idea of what we're talking about. So the driveways would come off Miller Street. There's 4 driveways. These would be the duplexes, 1 unit on each side. And these are the pervious paving parking pads, which is a tongue twister to say.
It is.
Commissioner Antle?
Yeah, this is probably mostly a clarification or a reminder from Lauren, because I know that this development is right next to a park, but parkland, excuse me, parkland dedication fees are something you pay in lieu of dedicating actual new parkland, and you can't collect fees to actually like enhance or help with maintenance of an existing park. Can you kind of remind me kind of how those rules work?
Sure, yeah, you are correct. So anytime we have a new residential unit, whether that's through a building permit or a site design or a platting process, our code requires that we have land dedicated based on the number of dwelling units added. In most cases, we don't need more land for a park system. We have a parks master plan through a Parks and Recreation Department. So more often than not, we're collecting a fee in lieu of land dedication. There is code language specific to how that monies can be used, and it's usually in our case not used to acquire more parkland. It's often used to improve existing parks or trail systems. So we do have some flexibility in how we can use it to augment our park system beyond just acquisition. It's not earmarked though for like the nearest park to the project.
Be slightly rhetorical, but interesting to remind us of. Okay, that's the only comment I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Christopher?
I do have sort of one question, and feel free to tell me that this is way beyond the scope of what we're considering tonight, but it seems to me that this will sort of vastly increase the residential footprint, particularly on Miller. I'm a little bit familiar with that area. There's an off-leash dog park in the park just to the north of that, and Miller Street does tend to get a bit crowded, particularly in the afternoons when this school to the south of this property gets out, and there's lots of cars lined up on Miller picking up kids and whatever. And so I guess I'm wondering if there's any plan along with this to sort of further regulate the intersection at Miller and 44th in anticipation of this increased sort of residential footprint.
Miller's not a local street. It's not a neighborhood street. It's a collector. So these units will kind of be a drop in the bucket compared to the background traffic we see on Miller. No, it is a good observation. Miller does get busy, and it's in part because it's one of the few through streets between 44th and the frontage road, plus the two schools at either end. So it is something that we keep an eye on in terms of traffic management, but it's not something that is directly related to this project or that this project would need to account for in terms of improvements.
And then I think sort of a similar nature. So I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that in terms of parking requirements, so each of the 8 units will have the pervious parking pad will accommodate 1 vehicle. And then are we taking into account that there will also be street parking directly in front of each unit? Is that where we sort of get to the required number of parking areas?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the parking pads will accommodate 2 vehicles.
Okay, cool. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Leo?
No, I think that it's pretty clear what the intent is, so I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I will now open up the hearing for the public comment. If you wish to comment on this case, you will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may not donate their time. When I recognize you, please give us your name, spell your last name, and share your address. We will now unmute all participants. Please keep background noise to minimum. If you do not plan to speak at this time, you may mute yourself through your own device. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Please speak now before I close the citizens forum. No one? I will now close the citizens forum and would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. I move to recommend approval of case number MS-20-06. A request for approval of a 4-lot subdivision on property zone residential 2A and located south of 4550 Miller Street for the following reasons. 1, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. 2, the requirements of Article 4, subdivision regulations of the Zoning and Development Code have been met with the following conditions. 1, fees in lieu of parkland dedication shall be provided at time of the building permit. 2, the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement with required security prior to recordation of the subdivision plat.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that from Commissioner Christopher?
Yes.
Okay, I have a second. Is there any discussion?
If I could, I would just like to say real quick, I think this is fantastic. I'm super excited to see Habitat for Humanity in our community. And, you know, particularly as we move toward more alternative modes of transportation, I'm excited to see some higher density development. And I think it's a great project.
I would second that. I'm very familiar with that street because I had one of my kids went to the Mountain Phoenix School. So I'm very familiar with Miller Street. I think that'll be a great location. And then tying in, and I've also performed, I guess some type of walk site analysis on Miller. And so this will be a great addition to have some sidewalk, little by little, because there's kids that walk back and forth to the park or to the schools. And so this will really be beneficial to the community. Okay, any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Larson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree. I think a project like this really does improve the overall character of that neighborhood. And I commend the folks at Habitat for Humanity. I have worked on several Habitat for Humanity projects in the past. And if it's not too late, to ask a couple of questions. First off, for Corey, when you guys typically develop a Habitat home, you often involve the local community, local building companies, local craftsmen, tradesmen, that sort of thing. What are the plans for this development?
Yeah, I can touch on that. So right now we're working on our plans for next year. So we're thinking this is going to start late fall for infrastructure, which would put it at a vertical construction start around the spring, which is kind of our sweet spot for engaging volunteers, because you don't want to be building right now, obviously, outside. But yes, our plan is to use volunteers. COVID has impacted that a bit. We still do involve volunteers. And so hopefully by next spring, we'll be in a place where we can really do our typical model where we get all different types of groups out there to help us build. And so these are the perfect types of houses to do that. So we're excited to do that in Wheat Ridge because it's been way too long since we built in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you, Corey. I do appreciate that. Again, compliments to the folks at Habitat for choosing this site. And I agree. I believe it will be a very worthwhile and welcome addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call for vote.
Motion approved. Oh, Melissa, is your hand up? Okay, wasn't quite sure. Motion approved 8-0.
Thank you. We will now move on to our next case. Give me just a second.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing for case number WS-19-06. An application filed by Frank Zolwanski for approval of a 6-lot subdivision for townhomes and property zoned mixed-use commercial and located at 7661 West 41st Avenue, and ask for the staff report.
Thank you. I'm going to play the staff presentation first and then the applicant presentation after. Hello, my name is Zareen Tasneem and I am a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge's Community Development Department. I am presenting case number WS-19-06, which is a request for approval of a 6-lot subdivision for townhomes on site zoned mixed-use commercial and UC and located at 7661 West 41st Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case.
Noted.
The property is located on the north side of West 41st Avenue between Wadsworth Boulevard and Yarrow Court. The Wilmore Davis Elementary School is located about a block west, and the Yarrow Gardens townhome development, currently actively under construction, is located further to the northwest. Although the aerial shows a single-family residential home on the site, it has since been demolished.
In 2019, the subject property underwent an administrative site plan review and was approved for a 6-unit townhome-style apartment development. Building permit applications for the development were submitted shortly after site plan approval, and construction took place in 2020, with the development now close to completion. The owner originally intended to own the entire property and rent the units. However, they subsequently decided to sell some of the units, which can only be achieved through platting. The property is zoned MUC, a zone district generally located along major commercial corridors such as Wadsworth, and encourages medium to high density mixed use development. Townhomes are a permitted use in MUC. This site is in an urban renewal area and was part of the comprehensive city-initiated rezoning of parcels adjacent to Wadsworth and within urban renewal areas in 2011. For this reason, parcels to the immediate west, east, southeast, and north are also zoned MUC. They contain commercial and residential uses. To the southwest and further west and northwest are properties zoned Residential 2, R2, and primarily consist of single-family residential homes. A subdivision plat is a technical document that removes, creates, or defines property lines, allows the city to evaluate adjacent right-of-way, and allows the city to evaluate civil documents such as traffic and drainage. As a reminder, a subdivision plat does not affect the zoning or permitted uses on the property. It enables development already permitted by the zoning. Because the plat creates 6 lots, it is classified as a major subdivision, and Planning Commission will make a recommendation to City Council, who is the approving body. With that, we'll look at the plat, in this case, 3 pages. This is the first sheet on the plat, which contains standard notes and declarations and signature blocks. This is the second sheet, which has the graphic portion. North is to the left. This sheet establishes new lot lines, tracts, and right-of-way dedication. It also shows existing easements that were recorded by separate documents. The third sheet of the plat is also a graphic depiction, this one establishing new easements. Next, we'll zoom in and take a closer look on some of the sheets. This is the second sheet zoomed in. Again, north is to the left. As you saw in the aerial, the site currently functions as one parcel, outlined here in orange. The total area of the subject site is about a 1/4 acre. Highlighted in blue are the existing easements benefiting the Wheat Ridge Water District. Outlined in purple are the 6 proposed townhome lots. The MUC zone district does not include minimum lot size and lot width requirements. When a new development occurs or when new lots are created through the subdivision process, staff reviews adjacent street improvements to confirm that they meet our current roadway standards. In this case, this was assessed at the time of site plan review, and a 5-foot attached sidewalk has already been constructed. This plat does, however, include a 1-foot right-of-way dedication to accommodate the city's standard 2-foot utility zone behind the sidewalk. The right-of-way dedication is highlighted in red. Outlined here in green, this plat also establishes 4 non-buildable tracts to be maintained by the Homeowner Association, or HOA, to be established for the site. Tract A and B encompass the residents' open space amenities. Tract C encompasses the shared pedestrian walkway that provides access to the front of each of the units. Tract D, which encompasses the drive aisle, also provides access to the unit's garages from West 41st Avenue, as well as the trash enclosure, bike parking area, and new hydrant. This is the third sheet zoomed in, showing the new easements. The yellow represents easement areas for utilities and access. The gray represents a stormwater drainage easement for the storm scepter manhole installed to handle water quality for most of the runoff caused by the added imperviousness. A drainage letter and plan were reviewed for the entire site as part of the site plan review, and drainage certifications have already been received by the engineering division, which confirmed the drainage facilities were constructed as designed. As part of the site plan and the subdivision review process, the application was sent on referral to outside agencies and other city departments. The engineering division has approved the plat. All utility agencies can serve the property, and the developer will need to work with those entities to install any additional necessary infrastructure. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. Comments collected on Wheat Ridge Speaks will be reviewed by the planning commissioners and entered into the public record. Staff has concluded that all agencies can serve the property and all requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. Therefore, we are recommending approval with one condition. The developer shall record documentation establishing an HOA concurrently with the plat recordation. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that we received one comment on Wheat Ridge Speaks related to this case, and it was pertaining to questions related to parking and traffic issues in the general neighborhood, but the commenter was supportive of platting this as a for sale product. I'd like to remind the commissioners that parking was addressed during the site plan review process and is not under review tonight, and the commenter was referred to our neighborhood traffic management program, which would address issues or related to traffic issues in the neighborhood in general, and that's managed by our engineering division. And now I'm going to play the applicant presentation.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Seferati. I'm with FJ Progressive Builders. We are a small local Denver and Wheat Ridge general construction company and development company. I am offering this presentation to you guys tonight in regards to subdividing the plat for a sixplex located behind me at 7661 West 41st. As you can see, the project is nearly complete and we will be getting our CO hopefully on Friday or Monday. In 2019, we purchased an old dilapidated single family home and recently have just finished developing this sixplex. Highly quality construction and very aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors and surrounding community. In our original planning, we wanted to maintain ownership of all 6 units and manage the property as rentals. However, with current financial burdens, we may be able to only retain 2 units and sell off the remaining 4. We have formed an HOA and are in the process, like I said, of obtaining the COs. These units offer high-end finishes at an affordable price. They will make great homes for families of all ages, including first-time home buyers. We strongly feel that this building and home model will attract more families to a growing area in Wheat Ridge. Being right off of 41st and Wadsworth, we feel that these homes fall in line with the Wheat Ridge Master Plan and Wadsworth Expansion Project, being that the stoplight will be moving to that stop sign right down there here shortly. Anyway, thank you for this opportunity to give the presentation. We look forward to doing many more projects together in the near future, and I am here for any questions if you might have them. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name
And the property owner, Frank Seferati, is here tonight to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Let's hear from Commissioner Kearns.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks. Tell me about parking, because the public comment mentions it. Is on-street parking allowed on, let's see, is it 41st? I understand that each unit has a couple of spots in the garages. That's great. I'm just wondering, like, where do guests park? Where, if parking was mentioned as a problem in this area, where are we going to park additional cars?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Tasneem, but parking was not one of the items we were discussing?
Correct. Those items were reviewed and handled during the site plan process.
I can chime in a little comment if you like.
Yes, if you could state your name, and do we need his address as well, Tammy?
Yes, if I could get it as well, that'd be great.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Frank Seferati. Nice to meet you all and see you. I live right down the street, 3605 Dudley Street. And for parking, there are a few different options. The garages are 20 by 21, so 2 SUVs will fit in the garage. However, I do understand if people have gatherings or extra family that comes over. I've arranged agreement with the owner to the east, Tom Yang. He has that medical office building. And he has agreed to do a after-hours parking agreement with any of the tenants or future owners, and they can contact him directly. And Tom has very ample parking in the lot to the east. We were able to use that strip for the whole construction of the project, which worked really well. I've also met the owner to the south in that medical office building, and he had no problem with overflow parking across 41st. That parking lot is very rarely, that's about as full as I have ever seen it in that picture right there. So there's been no problem with those two neighbor owners. They're very happy to see the development and encouraged it. Otherwise, off-street parking, or I would say on-street parking, is not directly on 41st, but it is down the block by the school and a little further to the southwest.
Okay, great. Shared parking is great in my mind. So thank you for talking with your neighbors, and that's awesome. Yeah, I see lots of vacant, sort of semi-vacant parking lots around you. So fantastic idea. Thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Disney?
No questions.
Commissioner Simbaya?
I have two, and then just more clarifying questions, I hope. So the applicant shows as Frank Swalinski. I hope I'm saying that right. The owner is Sweet Ridge. And then we have Frank Seferati here. I'm just trying to get a sense of how all these entities tie together.
Welcome to my confusion of the last 9 months. So Frank Slowinski is our surveyor with Power Surveying, and he's handling the major subdivision plat because it's far over my head with the details. So Frank Slowinski is a surveyor. I'm Frank Seferati. I'm one of the partners of Sweet Ridge Towns.
Got it. Thank you so much. This one is for Ms. Tasneem. What I'm trying to just make this simple in my mind. I may not be doing it correctly, but this has already been allowed. It's built, obviously. I hate to admit I hadn't been out as much to see it. But if we weren't selling individual units, we wouldn't even be talking about this. I mean, is that essentially correct, what I'm stating? And because we need to, this ownership group is willing to sell, we must go through this process. Is that correct?
Correct. So if they stayed as rental townhome style apartments, it would still be maintained under the current ownership, and it would just be rented out. Because the owner plans to sell some of the units, they need to plat the townhomes as individual units so it can be sold and create legal descriptions for them.
Yeah, I think I had it right in my head. I appreciate it. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. The first question is, during the video, we heard that the certificate of occupancy would be issued soon. Has that happened yet?
Yes, they were issued last week.
Okay, so that means people can, if they have the money, they can buy something today and move in tomorrow, right?
No. So until the plat has been approved by city council and recorded with the county, the legal separate townhome lots don't exist yet to be sold.
Okay. Okay, and on the video from the applicant, I did notice there was a for sale sign on the street. Can you tell me a little bit about how these can be sold when they're not fit for occupancy?
They can be advertised, but they're not being sold. There's also a large for lease sign on the banner. So because we have CO and because of economic restraints and interest and carrying costs and the 30% more it cost us to build the property than originally projected, we're trying to get a head start as much as we can.
Okay,
And just for
appreciate
context,
that.
we see
Go
a
ahead.
lot of projects, they're allowed to go under contract. So for a lot of our bigger townhome projects, they actually won't even start building until they've gone under contract. So you think about like the 200 unit Toll Brothers, they're advertising townhomes for sale that don't exist as a building permit. So nobody can close until a legal lot is created, but they can certainly advertise, sell, market, and go under contract.
Well, that certainly makes sense. And I do want to add that during this last summer, I had several opportunities to drive by that property. I can, just from the sort of sidewalk perspective, I can attest that these look like very well constructed, well appointed units, and I'm sure that there will be the buyers will be lining up across the street. There's no doubt. My other question, though, has to do with formation of the HOA. And many HOAs, I'm not sure if it's a requirement or not, but many have written into the covenants a limit on how many of the condos within the development can be rented, usually a proportion, sometimes a percentage. The condominium development I live in has a limit of 30%. And then any more than that, if you intend to rent out your condo, you have to wait until another one opens up. Will there be a rental limit placed in your HOA covenant?
So this will be townhomes, not condos. And as of right now, there are no limitations in our HOA docs. Friscona Law helped draft all the HOA docs, so they're very prominent law firm with real estate. Covered all bases, but we did not limit rentals on these units.
So if you purchase one of the units, you can turn around and rent it right away?
Yes.
Okay. And well, I am a little concerned for a buyer who may be buying what he thinks is an ownership of a unit with other owners, and then have the units next door or two doors down rented out when you expect them to be owned.
So right now, to that comment, the area being in an improvement zone, improvement district, and with the surrounding area, and the current cost of construction and the sales price is really not inviting to investors to purchase these units and then try to make a return and rent them. I feel there's far more greater opportunity out there for investors to buy rentals at older, dilapidated construction at a cheaper price that can maybe cash flow. These units are priced, I feel, just as an entry level first-time home buyer. However, they're not going to attract investors to rent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Christopher?
Thank you. I have 3 questions. One of them just prompted by Commissioner Larson. I think, Commissioner Larson, to your point, maybe this is a question for Lauren. Am I correct that assuming that at least the short-term rental proposal that we discussed at a previous meeting are adopted, this entire sixplex would be subject to the limitations of that ordinance.
Right. So when we looked at that ordinance, and now I can't remember the details, there was distinctions for how we treated apartments versus single family duplex versus condo versus townhomes. And I don't remember off the top of my head if it's each owner, I think individually gets to be able to do a short-term rental unless otherwise precluded by the covenants of that property.
My memory was that right where there are multiple units, there is some percentage limitation.
I think that's the case for condos and apartment buildings, but I could be wrong.
My second question is, Mr. Seferati, you referenced sort of the price point. I'm curious to know sort of what you're anticipating the price point being of the units you plan to sell.
Yeah, so they're priced anywhere from $490 to $510. They're 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath, anywhere from 1,700 to 1,900 square feet.
Yeah. And my last question, I know in advance that this question is a bit irrelevant, but because Mr. Seferati, we've got you here with us, I'm going to ask. I noticed that the name of the LLC is Sweet Ridge Towns, and Sweet and Ridge are two separate words, like Wheat Ridge, but the name of the subdivision is Sweet Ridge, one word, and I'm curious about why.
No reason. And then the HOA is called Sweet Ridge Towns HOA. So just trying to do a little play on words. I've always called Wheat Ridge Sweet Ridge. I love it in Wheat Ridge, and I just wanted to kind of brand it and hopefully do some more developments and play on the words a little bit more.
I totally agree with you, and I call it Sweet Ridge as well. I guess I'm curious about why this subdivision has it as one word instead of two separate words, but just turned out that way.
I didn't find a trademark anywhere, so maybe you want to copyright it or trademark it.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Leo?
I think you're muted.
I thought I did, sorry. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Antle?
None for me, thank you.
Okay. And I think people have moved around. I think I've already asked if Commissioner Simbai had questions, correct? Okay. I have a couple questions. Let's start with the first one. So if you could pull up I guess it'd be on that PDF we have, it's like sheet 2. It's on page 33 of the entire document. Where it shows the old easements.
Do you have it up, or do you want me to share, Zareen?
I'm going to open it, but if you have it ready, feel free to share.
I've zoomed into the graphic. Is that what you were looking at?
Yeah, I want to look at track D. Zoom in on that area.
Okay.
So on track D, there's a dashed line, and it's offset a little bit from the property line. And right now it says access easement. Yeah, so there's that dashed line. So the access easement does not go all the way to the property line, and then there's like that corner to the left that bumps out. Why is that? Why does that easement not go all the way to the property line compared to the new one?
You want me to take that, or do you want that, Zareen?
I think I'd rather have the staff answer that question.
Sure, I don't know if I can speak to it fully since it was recorded by a separate document, but I assume it might be related to the water lines getting to the units and being close to it, but correct me if I'm wrong, Frank.
Yeah, so there's a trash enclosure where that bumps out, right where your mouse is.
Okay.
And the easement is just for water to come in and maintain anything with the water meters. The water meters are 2 feet away from the garage door. So there's no need for them to need any additional space to access those water meters.
Was that ever intended to be, was there any requirement for like a landscape setback from that property line?
There is landscape on the south where you see the numbers 143. That easement actually goes right along with the curb and gutter that goes along that side of the property. So where you see 143 is all landscaped with rocks and trees and bushes. The dashed line is pretty much where a curb and gutter is.
Okay.
And then the easement is the concrete parking area.
And that's actually the west side, but so that was intended for landscape and then trash enclosure. That's why the easement went basically probably, is there a gutter there or is it just asphalt?
Yeah, there's a gutter. It's a catch basin, curb gutter. We put in a water reclaim system and a tank and a filter.
Okay, and then if you could, Lauren, if you could go to the next one, the new easement, and zoom in on that same side. So what does that mean then? We have a 25-foot wide access, it's an emergency easement, but it is encroaching where the trash enclosure landscape, is that
That's your West Metro access for the fire trucks and to set up their ladders and do all of that. It doesn't encroach in the trash enclosure because it kind of stops to the north before where the trash gates are. But that is their full easement for West Metro.
And sometimes their outriggers can extend beyond the curb if they need to service a taller building like this, which is why it sometimes goes beyond the flow line.
Okay. So that, it sounds like that's not an issue.
Correct.
And then let's go to the next one. The next question I had, there was some concerns about traffic. What is is there I doubt there's really a traffic report on this, but was there some type of like a preliminary count of estimated how many people were living there?
I believe the International ITE is the International Association of Traffic Engineers. I think it's 10 trips per day per townhome. So we just use their tables, would be 60 trips per day.
Okay. When that citizen who wrote that email was concerned, and they weren't concerned, I don't know if they were as concerned about 41st. It sounded like more like Euro, like traffic possibly coming from this development onto Euro. Was it ever discussed that that citizen does have options as far as speed bumps, speed humps with the city of applying for those?
Correct. That's why I had referred them to our neighborhood traffic management program page, and they can reach out to our engineering division to get those discussions going. It seemed like that citizen had some concerns related to traffic issues kind of coming up with the Yarrow Gardens development as well, and just the area in large. And for perspective, the person who made that comment, they live sort of southwest of this site immediately, so they're right in that vicinity.
Okay. And then the last question I have, just looking at the way this is and the way it fits, it appears to what I would typically call it's a slot home is what this is. This is a slot home development. What, Lauren, if you could just kind of walk me through, I'm just trying to envision like if we had these side to side to side, that how does the city look at slot homes, if there's any, what are the codes?
Sure. Some of you may recall we actually did a code amendment maybe about a year ago, maybe a little longer, that specifically talked about side-oriented townhomes. So what you're not seeing here is that lot number 6 was redesigned through the site planning process where the front door and a front porch do face 41st. You may have seen that if you went by the site. And this was one of several townhome projects that we used as a case study as we sort of wrote that code. They were already through, I believe, through the site planning process when we were doing that code amendment. So it is a sideways oriented townhome project, but it doesn't meet the definition of slot home because it does sort of activate and have features that front onto 41st.
Okay. And then does one last question, since we were showing the some pictures of the front. Does that deck protrude into the front setback, and if so, does that matter?
You want to talk about the build too, Zareen, in mixed use?
Yes.
Sure. So under the mixed use zone districts, we don't necessarily have minimum front setback requirements. We have more build-to requirements. In the MUC zone district, we have a build-to requirement of 0 to 20 feet, which means that a certain all of the frontage or a certain portion of the front of the building has to be within 0 to 20 feet of the front property line.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Does any of the other commissioners have any more questions before I move into the citizens forum? Okay, I will now open the hearing for public comment.
We have, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have nobody from the public joining us. I can see in the attendee list. Right
There
now.
are none?
No.
Okay, I will close the citizens forum and entertain a motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, I will move to recommend approval of case number WS-19-06, a request for approval of a 6-lot subdivision on property zoned mixed-use commercial, MU-C, and located at 7661 West 41st Avenue for the following reasons. 1, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And 2, the requirements of Article 4, subdivision regulations of the Zoning and Development Code have been met with the following condition. The developer shall record documentation establishing a homeowners association for the site concurrently with the recordation of the subdivision plat.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is that Commissioner Leo?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
I do have one point to make, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Kirchhofer and Mr. Seferati are going to think I'm a stick in the mud, but Sweet Ridge, to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I just can't get with it. Sorry, gentlemen.
I appreciate you saying that, and I gotta say I love the name. I something about it being one word when the city of Wheat Ridge is 2 words. But I hear what you're saying.
I call it Sweet Ridge once in a while.
Commissioner Disney?
I'd like to compliment Mr. Seferati. I walked the property today with my dog, and it is very well constructed. I was a little dismayed when I read this because I consider this a slot home design, even though the front does face the street. Nonetheless, everything goes shotgun back down the lot. But that being said, it's very well made. It's very well built. It has almost a peaceful feeling to it, which I was quite surprised. Your project, or one of your employees was watering the landscaping. We had a nice conversation. So I'm rather pleased that something this high quality is in the neighborhood. I would really, really, though, hope that City Council entertains some sort of traffic management program other than what is employed right now, because I am going to be the city's biggest pain in the butt about cars speeding through neighborhoods, especially on 41st Street. I know it's a collector, but it's really getting out of hand. And if there's any city council people that are going to watch this meeting, I hope they take it up and make some plans, because the police department doesn't have any interest in writing tickets. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now and say thank you for building such a nice project.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to join the soapbox with you because I'm on Dudley, which is a collector between 32nd and 38th, just west of Lutheran. and I have a 3-year-old kid. I put out 4 slow signs and they've all gotten ran over. And Zareen, maybe tomorrow you can put me in touch with neighbor traffic management as well. And together we can definitely jump on them, because I'm having the same issues and I'm not even a mile away.
I've looked at that too. I live in this neighborhood, and I've looked at it, and it is pretty interesting. But you need it sounds like you need like an 80% consensus of all the property owners for something to go through, and it's possible if you walk your block and you get everybody on board. But then it's also what I've learned. It's also a timing issue, that you have to get it on the city council's agenda so that gets put into the budget. And I would implore you to have those conversations with your neighbors, as soon as you can. And
I already have, and if it helps, I would, as a contractor who does right-of-way improvements all day, I would even take a blunt of that construction cost to do it. I know all the inspectors already, and I've got the guys to do it. So if it's something where I don't meet city budget, maybe I can get some people on my side to let my company fund it, or the neighbors fund it, or something like that.
I'm looking at Google Earth, and it looks like there's a speed bump right out in front of the property. Is that still there?
On this one, there is, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Speed bumps only encourage people to drive faster. I have one in front of my house that I did get put there with the 80% petition thing.
Good.
Any other discussion? Let's call for a vote.
Motion passed or carries 8-0.
Thank you. Okay, is there any old business?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
No old business, only new business for me tonight. We do not plan on having the first meeting in February. I believe that's the 4th. Check my calendar. Yeah, no meeting on February 4th. And then just a little PSA. We have been doing our Let's Talk resident engagement program in the Bel Air and East Wheat Ridge neighborhoods, and we are about to launch the second and final round of those conversations, taking all the input we received to date. We did put on What's Up Wheat Ridge, the engagement report from that first round. So compilation of all of the comments received through surveys and open answer questions and one-on-one conversations and small group conversations. So now we'll be having some conversations with folks about what we do, about some of the things they suggested, including things like traffic calming and development. So we'd encourage you or any of your neighbors who are in those 2 neighborhoods to participate. We have not yet picked neighborhoods 3 and 4 for our next blitz, but we plan to do so soon. So I'm sure I'll have an update for you maybe the next time we meet.
I do have one comment on old business. I read there's been, I think, probably the past, or at least I'll just say the past meeting we had that where we had a condition and we asked staff to write that condition, and I did look at the wording. This is on the industrial one that was next to Medved, and staff did a really excellent job, because there's a lot of trust, and staff did a really excellent job of crafting that, and it sounded like the applicant just put that into their document, and so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. That did go to council and got approved, and they're eager to get permits. So if you see activity up there, they're ready to go.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Antle?
I just had a question about the kind of status or timing of the 44th corridor planning. I thought you had mentioned something before, but it slipped my mind. Just curious, like where you guys are at with that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So the 44th quarter plan, we had a contract awarded over a year ago to a firm. And that was before COVID. And we had our kickoff meeting the maybe week or two before COVID started. And then when COVID hit and many municipalities were having budget issues, we had to put that project on hold. Likewise, the 2021 budget was written very conservatively for the city. So it's on what we call sort of the wish list. There's the approved 2021 budget and then a suite of projects from all departments that are dependent on revenues essentially in 2021. So that contract was not terminated. So we still have a consultant firm lined up when our funds become available. In terms of long range planning, what we are able to move forward with this year, I can't remember if we talked about this. I think we did. While we wait for funds for 44th, we will be having a master plan process start in about a month for the Lutheran campus. SCL is a landowner at Clear Creek Crossing. They are about to submit a specific development plan, so that will become a quasi-judicial case here soon. And they will be divesting themselves of most of the land at the Lutheran campus. So we went to council in November that the Lutheran campus is zoned only for hospitals right now and is shown in our comprehensive plan as only for hospitals. So we need to do a sub-area plan on that 100 acres to figure out what it's going to look like, manage everybody's expectations, the public, the neighbors, the community decision makers, and potential future owners. So in that case, we're able to move forward because SCL as the only landowner will fund the master plan and we will staff it as a sort of partnership project. So we're awarding that contract this Monday at council. We'll kick that off in February. I think that will be about 8 months. And then hopefully by mid-year, we'll have a better sense of whether we can proceed with 44th this year, depending on the city.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have long range planning still going. Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that's been impacted by COVID for sure.
Okay, no, and thanks for mentioning that. I saw that in the recent Gazette that the developer is going to pay to actually go through a public master planning process, which is, I think it was the developer, right?
The owner. So SCL owns and operates.
Oh, the owner. Okay.
And they understand that it's in everybody's best interest, including any potential future owner, to have a master plan happen first with a lot of community input.
Are you going to be establishing a task force for that?
We'll have a small stakeholder committee, and we'll be reaching out to council here soon to have nominations from them. We're trying, the technical components of this master plan in the scope of work include a lot of emphasis on the market, traffic, and utilities. And so because it's a partner project, we'll have council nominate a couple people who may have some expertise in certain areas and also have SCL be able to nominate some people. So we'll have a small, I would guess it's less than 12 sort of task force or stakeholder group, but then pretty robust involvement. The silver lining of COVID, frankly, is that we're having way more public participation in a lot of our events because we leaned in virtually more than we used to before. And for this particular project, because it's an enormous campus and the bulk of the planning will happen in the warmer months, we do still anticipate being able to do some outdoor activities on their property where people can really walk around and understand, like, what does this feel like in context to the neighborhood. So we're hopeful that that will really be able to draw a lot of folks into the process.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for the information.
Yeah.
Lauren, as planning commissioners, are we allowed to give input into the Lutheran master planning process? Are we allowed to give public input, or do we need to?
You are. We'll also be coming to you likely in at least one study session, and then you will have to, we will adopt that master plan as an amendment to our comprehensive plan. So you'll have a study session and a public hearing likely. But as a, I mean, you sort of lose the private citizen hat, so you can comment as a planning commissioner, but you'll also have the privilege of being able to look at it as a commission and to recommend approval of it as a commission.
Great, thank you.
I look forward to that. I spend a lot of time walking and biking through the campus, so look forward to that.
Yeah, thanks. Us too. It's a real opportunity. You don't get 100 acres in the middle of your city very often to think about. It's
And Lauren, would you real briefly, I don't know how briefly you can get, but we're talking about 100 acres and there's so many possibilities.
Yep.
What would the intent of a master plan be? Would it be, down to the half acre, there's going to be, residential here, or just sort of generally there's going to be a park here and a building there? What would be the goal of the plan?
That's a good question. So it's not site planning, but it is understanding, what are the utility and transportation constraints? What kind of uses can fit within that? In this case, frankly, what uses can make the project work? There's no public streets in that property. Those are private streets. So what mix of land uses can fill any of our market voids? What mix of land uses are in demand in the market, and what mix of land uses can generate enough revenues so that the development economics work to build the infrastructure to support any new land uses. It'll be a lot of looking at sort of what existing buildings are staying or not, what existing infrastructure can stay or not. So some of the variables, the Rocky Mountain Ditch runs through the property. So there's a lot of constraints. So understanding a lot of those constraints, and then understanding sort of what the mix of land uses could be, and a lot of focus on sort of what is the relationship between this property and the edges where it meets the neighborhood. But it'll probably leave the specific, alignments of roads or sidewalks or buildings more conceptual to allow for the developer to come in. And then I envision it'll be rezoned potentially to a planned development, and then you're accustomed to seeing the outline development plan, which will start to get more detailed in that way, and then likely a series of specific development plans. For point of reference, Clear Creek Crossing is about 100 acres. So a very similar model there, right? With it was more, they don't have a master plan, but the comprehensive plan was fairly detailed in what we expected to see there as a retail center with a mix of uses. Then they had an ODP, a vision book, and now you're seeing those specific development plans in phases.
So would it be fair to say that probably one of the biggest limiters maybe on that property might be the height?
The height limitations.
Restriction, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's something that we'll have to understand, and maybe it's scenario planning around, if the with and without the height and density limitations. I don't think the density limitation would be an issue. 21 units per acre at 100 acres is way more units than I would think would end up being there, but I think the height could be. There's existing buildings that are taller, and those can be repurposed if they're not functionally obsolete for other types of uses. So yeah, lots of variables, lots of things to think about. But we have a good team that we selected through our procurement process to be able to hopefully award that contract on Monday.
And Lauren, I would think simply as an example of a hospital that used to be that moved, you'd look at St. Anthony's near Sloan's Lake.
Yep. Yeah, that came up a lot in our interview process. A couple of the firms had been involved in that. There's definitely some lessons learned there. But yeah, we've seen that pretty recently. So you'll get more updates on that every month probably.
Any chance any section of that land will be used for single family homes?
I mean, from our standpoint, the master plan process is kind of the blank slate. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a real opportunity to utilize the land in maybe a higher intensity way, but it could be a mix of uses. We haven't at all thought about what could it be.
I'm hoping we can get a trails plan in there as part of it.
Yeah, we've heard through the Bel Air neighborhood's comments through Let's Talk that they have nearby open space. You think Crown Hill's right there, right on the south side. So to get a good network north to south to connect the surrounding neighborhoods to a lot of the existing amenities would be super. Yeah, there's a big hill. Somebody suggested we do a in-person event like on bike or on foot, and they were like, make all the stations be on the downhill side for when people, like if you're doing a loop.
Yeah, it's a big hill.
Mm-hmm.
I usually just bypass that and go a little bit north to Dudley, and then go up Dudley, which is very gentle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for vote.
Motion passed, 8-0.
Thank you, everybody. Keep us posted on that development, Lauren.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.